I'd like to, I guess, lift you up and take you slightly west and get you all to cast your mind to the coast, because today I'm here to talk to you about Auckland Council's Shoreline Adaptation Plan program, and really just, I guess, hopefully inspire you, as Pam has said, to be one little part of that process, or the very start of our journey. So you may not be aware, but Auckland has about 3,200 kilometres of coastline. We have the most densely populated coastline in all of New Zealand, and we've got a lot of places that we value incredibly highly around our coast that we all like to enjoy, where we live, and where we like to play and enjoy our water-based activities from as well. So I guess why are we developing shoreline adaptation plans? As Pam has alluded to, is because we need to start thinking about this. We need to start thinking about the risks that we have from our coastal processes, which we call coastal hazards, where they start to impact on the things that we value. We need to start thinking about how we manage these areas over time and what our plan is over the short term, the mid-term and the long term, not only so that we can protect the things that we value, but also so we can afford to, and so we can start thinking about priorities as well. So what is the sort of the scope or the purpose of our program? We're looking at all of our council-owned land and assets. So we're considering things like our local parks and our regional parks. So the Waitakere Ranges is probably a fantastic example of our regional parks, and all of the things that we have within those parks. So all of our parks, facilities, our infrastructure, everything from our campgrounds to our toilet blocks. On the eastern coasts, we also do things like manage the sand on the beaches. We top up the sand, we look after those areas, and we have a lot of different amenities there to access the water, like boat ramps and wharves. So this is a focus today, I guess, on the Whatipu to South Head coast, but we are thinking about it in terms of all of our coastline for the whole region, and there's the opportunity to have your say in those areas as well. So what are we doing? How are we going about this process? What we're doing is we're creating a series of plans, and we've broken our coastline up into 20 different areas because we have such a lot of it in Auckland. We've got 3 really large harbours. We've got our open west coast and our open east coast to deal with, all very different environments when we're thinking about the hazards that impact them. So we're thinking about our coastal storms and our coastal storm surges and inundation. We're thinking about that ongoing process of coastal erosion. We're thinking about how that interacts with our rainfall flooding that comes from the land to the coast, and needs to have somewhere to go, essentially, so that we don't have flooding or exacerbate or make worse the flooding that we have on land. What we're doing is we're looking at these areas one area at a time. We're looking at what do those hazards look like, what have we got there in terms of our council-owned land and assets that's actually exposed or it's in the way of these hazards, and how does that change over time. So to do that, we use some of our best science that we have from our Crown Research Institutes like NIWA, who you probably hear of in the news from time to time around our weather systems, and we use the best information that we've developed ourselves for the Auckland region to understand what the flooding and what the erosion might look like. Now, unfortunately, over the last year or so, we've also had the opportunity to experience what it actually feels like when some of these events occur, and I think that's been very sobering for all of us, and as I drive out here today, we're still dealing with the damage that we've experienced. So we need to start thinking ahead, and we need to start making some proactive decisions so that we all can look after the things that we value the most in the future. So what we're doing is we're identifying our risks, we're identifying our assets, but the other important pieces of this puzzle is the people. So we're consulting with our communities as we go to understand what you value, because I know as Auckland Council and a lot of other organisations, we consult with you a lot. So we're looking at what we've been told in the past, but we're also here asking you today what you value, what you use, what are your aspirations, what are your loves for the coast, where do you like to go most often, what do you do there, and that's going to really help us understand and prioritise where we spend money and where we protect things, and where we think we might need to find a different way, as Pam has said, to think about moving things away so that we actually keep and maintain some of those really important values about our coast, like having a sandy beach or providing space for our environments at the coast as well. We also look at our ecological assets. So a lot of our parks and reserves have a lot of really significant ecological areas within them where we have ecosystems and we have habitats, probably for some of the birds that you're here to see today, and also for all of our other fabulous native species. We also work really closely, and we have the privilege of the time that mana whenua iwi want to spend with us, and bring that really rich cultural context to the Shoreline Adaptation Plans as well, because that is really a fantastic indicator of how we look after our environments, not just for our generation but for future generations as well. So what we're doing with these plans is we're looking at 3 time frames. We're looking at what we do in the short term, or what we do now, and how we're managing these spaces. What we do in the mid-term, which we're looking from sort of around 20-30 years out to about 60 years, and what we do in the long term, and that's taking us from 60 years right out to sort of 100 years in the future. And when we're thinking that far ahead, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty around how our climate might change, what sort of sea level rise we'll be dealing with, and so as Pam said, it's really starting to look at our best information and a direction of travel. It's really important when we think about adaptive planning, and there's a key there in the word, that it's about being able to adapt and change. It's thinking about all of these pathways we're identifying and how we want to navigate our way through these over time. So what we're doing over 2024 this year is putting our first plan on paper. We're saying this is what we think we're going to do over the short term, mid-term and long term. And what we're doing when we're sort of identifying that, and you can come and interact with some of the resources that we have behind you before you set off on the walk, is we're thinking about where we're not going to do anything, where we're going to let nature take its course, we're going to let those coastal environments behave naturally. We're thinking about where we need to maintain and make safe what we've already got, making our activities safe, making them more resilient, making sure that our assets that we have there, like seawalls or protection structures, remain safe and they remain functional so we can keep using these spaces. We also need to identify what we want to protect and make a really strong policy direction around that in terms of protecting uses, protecting the coastline and holding the line in a specific location. And there's always costs when we think about holding the line, and we think about investing in some of those big structures, and so we need to think about where we do that and how that actually meets our needs in terms of our community's values, the assets that we have that support our lives and the functionality of our city, but also our environmental aspirations and our cultural landscape as well. And then finally, we also need to identify where we need to start to think about managed retreat. And we say we can't keep having all of these activities and these uses in these areas because we stand to have damage to them, have harm to them, have impacts on them. How do we think about starting to move some of these things away, move them back, plan for where we can still have these activities so that they support our communities, and make sure that we don't end up with some really, poor and hurtful and sad outcomes when we have storms which actually damage these areas and these assets. So what we're wanting to do is to put these plans together, and this is our first step. This is our first step towards how we manage these council-owned land and areas and our assets, and we really want to make sure that we're capturing our community's voices as part of this. Really being resilient and being adaptive in our journey, it's not something that any one of us can do alone. There are an awful lot of parts to the puzzle. Council and government is one of those parts. Communities, iwi, and our environments are a really, really big piece of that. It's got to be a collective effort. We've got to identify the things that we agree on, the values and the aspirations that we share, and let them help guide us towards a future that looks good across a range of things. So what we're really keen to do before you head off and enjoy the walk today is to capture how you use, what you value, and what you love about your coasts. So you can grab some sticky dots, and it's very quick and painless. us if you'd like to use the boards to place sticky dots, or if you'd like to stop and have a longer chat with myself or one of the team here from Eco Matters. And I also know we've got Shane and Mark somewhere in the back here who know a little bit about the Shoreline Adaptation Plan program as well. Then we would be more than happy to have a chat with you. And although our focus today is on the Whatipu to South Head area on that wild west coast, we're also looking all around the region, right through the Kaipara Harbour, all the way down the east coast, through the Waitemata, and out around Orake, Karaka Bay Beach and the Hauraki Gulf Islands. So we still have lots of coast to plan for, and if you'd like to submit surveys and feedback for those areas as well, you can do that on our online social pinpoint page as well. We're again pretty quick and painless to drop a pin and just provide some feedback. So thank you all for your time, and I think you're a part of a journey for us with Auckland, but it's also a bit of a national journey I think that we're going on as well. We've got a lot of coastline in New Zealand, and we've got a lot of things there that we value, and so we do need to make a plan, we do need to think about priorities, and we do need to do it all together. So thank you very much.